All right, I am recording. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to day 43 of the Rankin Technical College online AWD 1100 C# programming class for the summer 2023 semester. Today, as it says, as promised, I'm going to go over the LINQ worksheet problem number 3, the student grades as a class. And actually, I'm going to create 4 versions of this. The last one is the one you'd be concerned with, but I want to build up to it for lack of better words. All right, so I'm going to create this. I've got it done already, so I'm going to be working off what I've done, but I'm not saving it as a Git repo. My guess is that's going to take somewhere, with putting one break in there, somewhere around 1 to 2 hours. All right, then I'm going to stop recording and I'll start recording again 5 minutes later, but I'm going to do 2 different recordings. In the first one, I'm going to go over what we're going to be doing in the AWD1000 class. That's the Web Development Technologies class for the fall semester. And most of you in here, this is your first class, the C# class, so you're going to be taking that class. A few of you who are in this class now have already taken the AWD1000 class. So the class you'll take in fall is the AWD1115 Database Driven Web Development 2 class. All right. For the AWD1 class is going to get a copy of that video. Everyone is on my list for the AWD1115 class. So in other words, whatever class you're going to be in fall, you'll get that video. All right. Tomorrow, I'm going to go over chapter 22, the last chapter in the book on data grid view. I'm really right now thinking about doing a project for you. I won't have time to do it ahead of time, so I'd be doing it on the fly, which means it'll either be a flaming success or a flaming failure, or knowing me somewhere in between. All right. But we will go over chapter 22 tomorrow, and that will finish the book. And again, as it says there, you are not responsible for any of the material for chapter 20, chapter 21, or chapter 22. I'm going over all of it to try to be complete. Since I'm not lecturing on chapters 20 or 21, if you'd like to see past lectures from the last time I taught the class, which was the fall of 2022, now, this was the 7th edition of the book, so this was the previous edition of the Muroc text. But those are links to that if you're interested. If you're not paid, no problem. All right. So please remember that the last set of written tests and homework that you have for the semester are due tonight by midnight. All right. Your final project will be due 2 weeks from yesterday. Your electronic portfolio will be due 2 weeks from today. As always, if you have any questions or comments on that, please email me. Okay, so let me close this and let's get started. All right. So what we're working on here is I've done the song search. We did that in class a week or so ago. Maybe it was even longer now. The employee search we also did as a class. So the one we're going to be concerned with is this one right here. In fact, let me copy that. I'll put that into when I start putting in my comments. So let's look at all of it here. We want to make it a little smaller so you can see everything. Okay. All right. So create an application that calculates the final grades for a group of students. The program must read in data from a text file. Now, the text file that I used, I didn't save you a copy, but you can make your own. You could use this one. I can send it. I made up 10 lab scores, which are right here. I made up 10 test scores, which are right here. That's my input right there. And I called it students.text. All right. So the program must allow the user to search for students by name. So you put a name in here. So notice they have Gem and Gem Stott. I don't know if that's supposed to be a takeoff of Jeff Scott, but doesn't matter. So Jim, okay, is in there, it looks like. And when you put that in, they had a lab grade, they had a test grade, and using a calculation, which we'll mention in a minute, you get an overall grade. All right. So the program must be case sensitive. All right. It must display the student's average lab grade, their average test grade, which are these two things here, and then their overall grade. And you have to do a little formula to do that. And that is this one, or if the student isn't found, so if I put hello in there, it should come back and say hello not found. All right, like that. The program must use LINQ to search for students and assignments, must use LINQ to calculate the average lab and test grades. I don't think I really used LINQ for this one in the final one that we're going to go over, but again, hopefully it'll be okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write 3 versions of this program, all as a console app, as we're building towards doing this one right here as a GUI app. Hopefully what I just said made at least a little bit of sense to you. All right. Like I said, hopefully it made at least a little bit of sense to you. One more time, let me grab all this and copy it to the clipboard. All right, now I'm going to make a new folder here, and I'm just going to call it student grades. Now, why student grades? Again, notice student grades. So that's what I'm going to call my folder. So right here, I'm making a new folder, student grades. Right there. There it is. There's nothing in it, of course, because we just created it. So let's start up Visual Studio. Package did not load correctly. Restarting Visual Studio. No. Well, it didn't like whatever I was doing there. So let's try it again. Hopefully I don't get that error again. I didn't. All right. Haven't seen that error before, although I've gotten a lot of them in the past. Create a new project. And this will be a console app.NET framework. I'm going to call this student. Try it again. STUDENT. I'm going to call it student grades console 01. And in just a moment, I'm going to make student grades console 02, student grades console 03, and then we'll make student grades GUI. That's the one, all right, that'll be the most important for you. All right, so I'm going to create this. And there is my first app. I don't need this anymore. It's working for the other class. So, all right. Now, the first thing I want to do is I want to come in here and I want to create a class. Okay. And I want that class to be able to be used by all of my programs. All right. Well, I didn't do this for my example, but I'm going to try it here. And that is, I'm going to create a class library. It's going to be really simple. So I'm going to right mouse click on the name of my solution, choose add, new project, and I'm going to choose a class library. And this is a student grade library. So I'm going to call it student grade library. I think I spelled everything right. So let's create it. I'm going to keep this set to 2.0, and there it is. Now I don't need this class. This is just that garbage class that they put in here that's called class1.cs. So I'm going to delete that, say yes. Now in my student class library, I'm going to make one class, so I'm going to be able to use it by all 4 of these programs I'm about to create. So I'm going to put a new class in here, and it's going to be student.cs. First thing as always, I want to do is change that from internal to public. All right, and it's going to be 4 lines. It's really, really simple. Public string name, get set, public, decimal, test grade, get set, public, decimal, lab grade. Order these two just because we were the lab one before we're reading in the test one. That's all. Doesn't matter. The order doesn't matter that you put these in. Finally, I'm going to create a constructor. So we'll put in here a no-arg constructor. So this will just be public student, paren, curly, curly. That's my entire class right there. All right, so each student has a name, each student has a lab grade, each student has a test grade. Now, just so you see this, cut this size down here. So my names are John, Jane, Mark, Paul, etc. My lab grades are 77.8, 100, 88.7, etc. And my test grades are 93.2, 99.4, 90.25, etc. That's what I'm going to eventually be using in here. So this is my class. Okay. Now, for the first couple of examples in here that I am about to show you, all right, I did not use the file. I hard coded the values in. All right, why am I doing that? Because I'm trying to kind of bring some closure to the semester, and we've used lists before, but I want to make sure that you understand what I'm about to do. So like I said, I'm doing this in as 4 programs. Whether that's a right thing or a wrong thing to do, I don't know. So save all. So right here, I'm just going to close that. So this is going to be my program right now. All right. So in main right here, in main, I am going to create my list of students. Again, I am not using, I'm saying this again, I am not going to use, not using here, all right, the, I'm not using the input file. In fact, before I even do this, let's come down here. And move that over. Okay. All right. And let me grab those comments because I was going to do that before. Copy that. And let's paste that in here. Okay. Give me a second to pretty this up. This way I'll have it in there for every one of the ones that I do. I'm just going to copy it over. These are again taken directly. Hopefully you saw that. These are taken directly from the requirements that we were given. Okay. Take just a minute or so to finish that up. All right, there's all my comments, again, taken right from the book. So let's do this. So the first thing I want to do is create a list of students. Now, so you don't have to watch me type because you just did, but so you don't have to watch me type. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to, I've got a working copy of this in here. This is the one we're going to create a little bit, but I want to grab this, just like I said, so you don't have to watch me type. I think that's kind of a waste of both our times here. So creating our list of students, and there they are. Now, don't worry, we're going to get rid of the error in just a moment. You may have already figured out where that error is from. All right. Let's make this public. Okay. And we've got our list of students. So let me make this smaller so there. Now you can see all of it. Those are the same 10 things that I just showed you from the file. So that information is this information right here. Okay. Now I'm getting this error because there's no communication right now between my program and the class library. So let's establish that. Come in here and choose the add reference to using student library. All right. So it added that using statement right there. All right. And now I have no errors. Now I could run the program right now, but it wouldn't do a flaming thing. All right. Plus, I want to give the user the opportunity to run the program again and again. So what I did in here was I created one variable, bool, and I called run program again, and I set that equal to true. All right. And in main, all I have in here is while run program again. I'm going to call 3 routines that don't exist yet. So I'm going to get 3 error messages here, actually 2. So search for student. I'm going to pass in students. That's not written, so we'll get an error. Then I want a console.readline. And finally, oops. Finally, I want to run program again equal, and I just made a thing called again. All right. Now it's going, like I said, it's going to give me 2 errors here because I have not yet written a routine called student, and I have not written a routine called again. Let's grab that line with again on it and just copy it out or comment it out for right now. All right. So this right here, I'll make it smaller, but this is my whole main right here. I'm creating my student list. I'm creating a variable to allow me to run the program again. And I'm saying, while that variable is true, call search for student. All right, get a read line in here and then run the program again. In fact, I think what I'm going to add in here is a console.clear. So each time I do this for a new student, I'll get a new screen. Okay, which I think is kind of nice. So we want to write this right now. Okay. Now, this is not going to return anything. So let's come in here, and this will be a static. It has to be static because it's working with main, void. It's called search for students. Okay, and you'll notice I'm getting an error right now because remember, I have to let it know what kind of variable that is. That is a list of students. Okay, so I'm passing in my list of students so that I'm going to be able to search it and see whether or not that student is in there. In fact, I'm going to grab that console.clear. Now that I think about it, I'm going to put it in here. All right, so I'm going to first clear the screen. No big surprise there. Then I'm going to say console.write, enter the name of the student to search for. Okay, nothing new there, no surprise. And then I'm going to create a string variable called search name. because that's what that is. And I'm going to set it equal to console.readline. So I can run this program right now. Not going to do much, all right, but I can save it and run it. And it comes up and it says, enter the name of the student to search for, which is that line right there. So I can put in Jeff, hit enter, and nothing happens. Boom. Okay. It's in a loop right now, but that's okay. All right. So it's going to do that. It isn't searching yet. It isn't doing anything. But now what I want to tell it to do is to search for that student. So search for name entered into variable search name. That's what I'm doing right here. So what do I want to do? I want to iterate through the list of students to see if I can find a match. Right? I'm saying this again. I want to iterate through my list of students to see if I find a match. So I'm going to put it into a for each loop. So for each student in the student list, all right. Now I think all of these actually using, so this will be my LINQ. I don't know, search, not really a string. I'll just say LINQ search. All right. So var searched student is a new variable, and it's going to be equal to students dot first or default. And I'll put this over 2 lines so it doesn't fly off the screen. Then we'll go over it in just a second. All right. And what do we want to say here? Well, not much. All right. I might still run out of room. So let's do it like this. S, it's just another variable that I made up. S dot name, no. S. And I think I'm getting an error here because I think I'm not using right now. I do have system.link. So we'll see if we can figure out what the error is. So let's see. Var searched student equals students dot first or default. Okay, there's the problem. Try this again. Okay. Let me get rid of all this oh, come on, cut it out. All right. I'm just going to put a paren in here and I want to be able to go on to the next line. All right, just because I'm going to run out of room otherwise. First or default, S, now it'll work. S dot name dot to upper equal search name dot to upper, just like that. Now, what that line of code right there is going to do is for each student, it's searching in here to see if the student that I entered here is in this file here. So if I typed in Judy, it would work its way down to here and then find Judy. If I typed in Bill, it would look through it and say there was no match. All right. So either when we get done, either this search student is going to have a student in there, Bill, Mary, John, James, whatever, or it's going to have null. It's going to have one or the other. So if my searched student is not equal to null, what do we know? Found a matching student. And I guess I misspoke before. It's not going through that file. It's going through this list right here. So if I type in Gail, it's going to find it at the very end. If I type in Jimmy, it's not going to find it. So it will be null. So if we found a matching student, we're just going to do a console.writeLine. All right, and we'll say the student name. And that will be the searched student.name. Looks like we're running out of room here, so let me make this smaller. There we go. Okay, so that'll give us the name. All right. And then we'll say the lab grade. And we'll have search student dot lab grade. Again, we're grabbing that where. You should know this by now. We're grabbing it from the class. So again, we'll have another WriteLine here. And this one will be the test grade. Again, I'm a little squirrely about stuff. So there we go. All right, that's going to give us right now, that'll give us 3 of our 4 pieces of information. The only piece that it will not give us, is the calculated grade. All right. So what I did was I called a routine called calculate overall grade, and I passed that student that we just found right. Calculate overall grade. It's going to give me an error because we don't have it written yet. And we passed in the searched student. All right, so let's write that one right down below this. All right, very small, static, void, calculate, overall, grade. All right, and it'll have, it's type student. It'll be the student. All right, so our error is gone. So in here, we'll say, let's just make up a new decimal, overall, grade. We'll set that equal to student.lab grade. All right, and that's times 40%. Let's put this into parentheses. Probably need an M there. Plus student, did there, but something. Plus student dot test grade, and that is times 60%. All right, that's it. That's the sole calculation that we need here. All right, so we need a paren. Let's put another paren there. Okay, and a paren around the whole thing. Okay, so we now have the overall grade. Well, let's just grab one of these. And we're going to now say overall grade. And that is just going to be, we don't need any of this. It's the one we just put in there. So that's overall grade. And we can format it. So we assure that it has 2 decimal places. Okay. Like that. Now I'm missing something, and that is, I got the curly. I think I need another paren right here. And then yeah, right before that. No, that should be there. All right, so what doesn't it like? grade. Says method name expected. No. Oh, it needs a .toString on there. So yes, it did expect a method name. All right. So right now I can run it. The only thing I don't have is the ability to run the program again, which I want to put in there. Then we'll go over all of it. So static bool again, about 10 lines or so. Bool result equal true. String, I called it yes or no, which is kind of a dumb name, but I set that equal to the empty string. And a char, which is going to be the first character. And I set that equal to this. All right. So these variables that are right here, all right, this is going to be what we return. Okay, that result. So this will be our return value. This will be what user enters, should be a Y or an N. But because they're human beings, they may not. So this is the first character of yes or no. Okay. All right. So console.writeLine, that should make it a write. Run program again, yes or no. Yes or no equal console.readLine. So they entered something, but we don't know if what they entered was what we wanted or not. All right. So if yes or no dot trim, if it's equal to nothing, well, then they didn't enter anything. They just hit the enter key. If that's the case, we'll just handle it by as though they put in a yes. So if it's not equal to that, then they entered something. Okay, so the first char is equal to yes or no, 0. That's the first character. That is the first character. If that first character is not a Y, if it's not a Y, well, then they entered like an N for no or typed in the word no. So result equal false. Finally, we want to just return the result. Now, I'm going to go over all of it in just a second, but before we do that, let's try it and see if it works. So File, Save All. Now, here's our names we can test it with. John, Jane, Mark, Paul, Mary, Judy, Jill, Mike, Kent, and Gail. All right, so let's run this. Move this over and I'll move that up. So the name. Whoa. Well, it did it for all 10 students. It did John 10 times. Something's wrong in there. We'll fix it. I'm not worried about it. But let's see the first one. John, 77.8. 93.2. Well, let's move that over a little more. 93.2, which gave the overall grade an 87.04. And there's an extra paren in there. That's okay. We'll fix that too. All right. But then it ran it again and again and again and again. So it ran it for everybody. So I'm missing something. There's probably a return statement that I'm missing. That's okay. We'll fix it right now. But in here, Well, we'll have to find that. I don't know what right now where that's screwing up, but we'll find it. All right. So, like I said, we're probably missing something in here. So if it's not null, first of all, what if we put somebody in there that's not found? All right, then outside of this for loop, outside of that for loop, which I left off here, we'll say console dot write line, and then our student search name. So like if I put in Barney and there was no Barney, I want to say not found. All right. Where I had my error, where I have my error, is right here. If we found the student, we want to return, and I didn't return there. So that's me. All right. Also, since we don't want this to run off the screen, I'll do a console.read line right here. All right. That should fix everything that we had wrong. So let's run it again and see if indeed it does work. So let me move these over so you can see all of them. There we go. All right. So here it is. So again, we'll run John. All right. So you can see, again, I've got to remove that parenthesis. Okay. So that worked. All right. Now enter another student, Jane. 100, 99.4. There, that worked. Paul worked. Mary worked. Judy worked. Jill worked. Mike worked. Kent worked. And finally, Gail worked. If I put in a name that doesn't exist, just says student Barney not found. So it appears as though it's all working. Let's try it again. Let's put in Kent again. So right after overall grade, there's somewhere in there. Oh, I know what the problem is. We'll fix it right now. Let's stop the run. The error is in here. So overall grade, toString, paren. Doesn't look like there's an extra one in here, but there must be. Okay, that's it. Oops. There, that's how that should be. No, try that one more time. There we go. I had these things kind of transposed. Let's run it one more time, then we're going to take a look at it. So we'll just use Mike. There it is. All right, so what we did was for Mike, all right, his lab grade was a 55.6. His test grade was a 73.8. 55.6 times 40% plus 73.8 times 60% gives you 66.52. So let's take a look at the entire program top to bottom, and then we'll jump into the next one. Okay, first I'm going to grab this because these are all the comments, and I'm going to put these in all of them. All right. So the first thing we did was we created this list of students right here. 10 students. I hard-coded them in. Now, that's not terrible, but if you can imagine we had a class of 100 students, it'd be so problematic you wouldn't want to do that. That's one of the reasons that you use a text file. Somebody else, some data entry person then could create the text file and you just bring it into your program. And again, the list, like the text file, has three components: a name, a lab grade, and a test grade. These are all arbitrary names, arbitrary lab grades, arbitrary test grades. I made them up. Our program continue variable or what call it. All right. Run program again. So again, I actually could have made these, taken this and put it up here and made it global. Then I wouldn't have had to pass it in here. All right. It doesn't really matter. This isn't a long program anyway. Now my run program again, I can now undo that. Okay. All right. So as you can see again, pretty much main is just declaring this global list. And then it's this. So main is basically acting as a driver. So as long as I want to keep going, search for a student, right? Put a read line there so it stops. I don't even think I need that read line, to be honest with you. So let's comment that out. I don't even know if I need that. So search for a student and then ask if they want to run the program again. When we search for a student, we clear the screen and we say, enter the name of the student to search for. So I say John. All right, so it comes through and it iterates through our list of 10. And if it finds somebody, it writes out, so John is at the top, it writes out this information. Then it calls the calculate grade, where it writes out the last piece of information. Then it returns. If I type in Barney, it goes and it runs this line of code. Barney not found. All right, then we got a read line to just stop. Again, calculating this is just the lab grade times 40% plus the test grade times 60%, and we print that out. Finally, we've got our again, which just asks the user if they want to run the program another time. That's it. All right, so that is literally all we've got in here. So that is the first one. This isn't going to help you a lot to do program number 3 for the LINQ worksheet. We are going to do that one in just a few minutes, but I wanted to show you how you can write a console program, and writing that console program, how you can create a list in the program, iterate through the list, looking for something, and either announcing, yes, I have it, or no, I don't. All right, so again, when I run this now, I'm going to run it, put in one valid person and one invalid person. So Mike, there's Mike's information, run the program again. And if I either hit enter or if I type in a Y, all right, now if I put in Barney, okay, now I'm going to say no, and the program's done. So that's the first one. All right. So again, that is not what you were asked to do. We will do that one in just a bit. All right, I'm going to save that. I'm going to do a file, save all. All right. And I'm going to come in here and write a second one now. So that was student grade console 01. I'm going to now come in here and write student console 02. So again, right mouse click on here, choose add, choose new project. It will again be a console app. And again, as I said, it will be named student grades console 02. This is going to look very, very similar to the first program. It won't be identical, all right, but it looks very, very similar. In fact, now that I look at it, because I don't want to waste your time if I'm going to rewrite the same program. It is pretty much the same program. I guess in the first one, what I did originally was I didn't give you the ability to run the program again. I added it. So since that's in there, we will just go right into the last one. So let's write this one. And in here, we're actually going to be able to use this file that we have right there. So we'll use that file. It's kind of hard for you to read, but this file for me is under my C drive. I've got a folder named C# I've got a folder under that named Files, and I've got a file in there called students.txt. So that's what I'm using. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to before. Hope I've got it in there still. Yep, I do. There's my comments. So those are again all in here. Now this is going to be different. All right. What do I mean when I say this is going to be different? Well, what I mean is we're actually going to use that file now. All right. So when we did before is we said list student, and again, we haven't established our communication between those two. We'll fix that in a minute. Students equal, and we said new list, and then I put the 10 names right there. I don't want to do that now. Let's immediately establish our communication. So we'll add a reference to the student library. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to tell it, we're going to say read students from file. That doesn't exist yet, so I'm getting an error. All right, and I'm going to tell it now where that file exists. And it is on my C drive under a folder called C#, under a folder called Files, and under a thing called, I think I called this one grades.txt. Okay, now I'm getting that error again. In fact, let me bring up the grades file. I've got the wrong file here. There it is. Yeah, it doesn't need the double quotes around everything, but everything else is exactly the same as it was before. All right, so I'm reading this and it's giving me an error right now because that doesn't exist. We'll make it exist in just a moment. All right, I'm saying this again. We will make this exist in just a moment. All right, this read from file. All right. So in fact, let's just put it in there just so this error goes away. So this will be static, again, because it's working with main, and it will return a list of students. All right. And really everything is right there. Now that error is gone, but I get a new one because I'm not returning anything yet. That's okay. Let's write our main, and then we'll come in and we'll write this one. So what this says, read the list of students from the text file named grades.txt. That's exactly what we're telling it to do right there. All right. When you go and read through this, something can possibly go wrong. You put a wrong name in there. You put a wrong path in there. All right. You did something incorrect. Catch block. And quite often, when you are working with try catch, all right, almost always, at least when you're working with a try catch, what's going to happen is you're going to use a try catch block. I'll just put that in there for now. So if we get an exception, we'll write it out. Let's just write a little message here. We'll say, I don't know. Error reading file. All right, and we'll just within curly braces. Like that. Ooh. Come on. Boy. There we go. So if it fails, it's just going to say error reading file, and it'll give us the message. Okay. All right. Now we've got our try in here, which isn't doing anything right now. So let's make it do something. Okay. Now, remember from back in chapter 17, when we worked with files, all right, we used what's called a stream reader. So I'm going to use the stream reader and I'm going to call it SR for stream reader. You can call it whatever you want. And that's equal to a new stream reader. And that'll have in it the file name. All right. So, oh, what am I doing here? Okay, I said I'm going to read this from the file, and that's what this should all be in there. So it should be right there because I'm reading now. All right. We passed in the file name. So again, if I confused you, I'm sorry. But what we're telling it here is we want to create our list of students, but rather than hard coding them in as we did earlier, we want to read them from a file. From what file? This file. All right, so we're calling this read from file name, and this right here, this becomes file name. All right, so we're coming in here and we're attempting to set this up. All right, and I actually don't want this because I want to do everything in what's called this using statement here. What do I mean? Well, every single record in my file has got 3 fields in it. Field 1, field 2, field 3. Field 1, field 2, field 3. Every one of those records is separated by a comma. So what I want to do is I want to take this file and I want to break this into 3 fields, then break this into 3 fields, then this into 3 fields, etc. How do I do that? All right. Well, I come in here and the names while that line of text that we're trying to read, while it's not null, which means there was something in there to read. That's all it means. All right. So we're going to keep reading until we run out of stuff to read. All right. So string, bracket, data. So that's what's in each file equals sr.readline not equal to null. Okay. And you might be like, fine, what the heck does that mean? Let's break it down. All right, let's break this whole thing in here down. Doesn't need that. And it needs another one here. There we go. All right. We're making an array of strings that's called data, and we're setting it equal to, well, that's what this is all screwed up here. All right. Notice I get this line here. All right. It shouldn't have said that. It should have said dot split like that, but that should be a comma. All right, now I probably totally confused you, so let's look at this. This is saying what we want to do is we're taking the file that's right here and we're, for lack of better words, deconstructing it. So we're making it look like this. John, 77.8, 93.2. Then Mark, 88 was next. After John was Jane. Jane, 100, 99.4. And I'm not going to do any more. All right. But it's going to do that for all 10 of them. All right. That's what we're telling it to do right here. So we're saying as long as there's data, I want to split this. So I'm splitting each line from one record, or like string, for lack of better words, into 3. And I'm splitting them whenever there's a comma. All right, that's fine. Now I want to make sure there's 3 things after I split it. So if the data dot length is equal to 3, okay, that's the first thing. All right. But what I have to do then, remember, I'm reading a file here. This is not the number 77 and 8/10. This is the character string 77.8. It has no arithmetic value. So what I have to do is I have to attempt to convert it. So if this and, so what I want to do here is to say decimal dot try parse, and that I want to parse what? The first thing that's in there, which is data 1, and if, whoops, data 1, come on. All right, data 1, and if it works, I want to put the output into a decimal that's called lab grade. We'll fix this up. I've got some errors in here. We'll fix them up right away. So paren, and then we have to do it again. Let me put it in here. Let me get rid of the errors, and then we'll go over all of it. So this is the test grade. All right, so first of all, let's get rid of these errors. So we've got a decimal dot try parse, and it's giving us an error here. It says no overload for try parse takes 1 arguments. Okay, paren, data 1, okay, comma, out, decimal, lab grade, fine, and decimal dot try parse, data 2, okay, trying to figure out what I typed in wrong here. In English, what I want to say is, if there's 3 things after we broke this up, take the second thing that was in there, which is data 1, and attempt to convert it into our lab grade. Take the third value that's in there, which is data 2, and attempt to convert that into the test grade. All right, so let's see. If data dot length equal 3 and decimal dot try parse, does it give me an, no, dot try parse? That's the problem. That should be a bracket. That'll fix that one. And that should be a bracket. There we go. And we need afterwards. Okay, so what this says in English is, if I was able to successfully take this and break this from 1 line of code into 3 different fields, all right, if I was able to do that, now I can create a new student. All right, so that's what I'm going to do in here. I'm going to say student equals new student. All right, we'll put this in here. This is the newer way of doing it. So the name is equal to data 0. The lab grade is equal to data 1. And the test grade fact, we're not even going to do that. We already figured it out right here. We've got lab grade and we've got test grade. So the lab grade is equal to lab grade, and the test grade is equal to test grade. All right. You can hear that behind me. It is raining out pretty hard by me right now, so I'm hoping I don't lose my internet connection. All right. So in English, this says if I had three fields, attempt to split this. The first field that's in there will hold the name. The second field that's in there will now be called lab grade. The third field that's in there will now be called test grade. And now that I've created a student, all right, now that I've created a student, I've created a student. I want to add a student to my list of students. So I come in here, this is the last thing in this routine, and I say students dot add student, like that. All right, oh, that should be a little less. That'll fix that error. Now, where's the other error? Students dot add, that's got to be inside of the curly brace here. There we go. So that's got to be a capital S. So now it is this lowercase s. So what doesn't it like there? We're going to fix it. All right. Taking this whole thing from the top, says students does not contain a definition for add. Why it wouldn't, because it should, but let's just take the whole thing. Okay. And we've got this that's in our try. So that's our try. We've got our catch, which is down here. All right. And after our catch, we want to, let's get rid of the error that we've got in there. So we're going to return students. Okay, now hold on, we'll fix this. Let's go take the whole thing from the top. All right, we're telling it we want to create our list of students by reading our file. That's what we're doing right there. We want to create a list of students, and we want to create that list of students by reading each line of code that we have in that grades.txt file. All right, so fine. So we come in here, static list student, read student from file, string file name. Okay, all right. But we have to create a new list of students. So list, that's where the error is, student, students equal new list of type student. Our errors just about are gone. So what are we doing here? Let's just take this whole thing from the top one more time. We're telling it we want to fill up this list of students, and we want to fill it up by reading the contents of this file right here. Each line that's in that file has 3 pieces of information in it. We call this data. So data 0 has got all the names. Data 1 has got all of the lab grades, and data 2 has got all of the test grades. All right. So we come in here. This is going to be the list of students that we return. Since it is working with files, it's possible that it could fail. So we put the whole thing into a try catch block. All right. So we're using a stream reader here, which says we don't want to change anything. We just want to read in the lines from the file. This is each line that we're reading in. As long as that file contains some information, then we're going to split the line into 3 fields. And they're called data. So Data 0 will hold the name. Data 1 will hold the lab grade. And data 2 will hold the test grade. Now, the system is not that smart, so you need so every time we find a comma, you're going to create a new field. So this is one field, comma. This is one field, comma. This is one field. All right. And since we have it in a loop, it's going to loop through every record that's in there. And if we do end up with 3, which we do, there's 3 fields in each record, then we attempt to take that second field, which is read in. Because it's read in, it's text. We attempt to convert it into a decimal. Same thing with the third field. If we're able to do all those, we now have a valid student. So what this is doing right here, right there, all right, is it's going to come in here and it's going to read this. Says, are there 3 things in there? Yes, there are. So this first thing, it makes that the name. Then it says, can I convert that to a decimal? Yes, I can. So that second field becomes the lab grade. Then it looks at the third thing. Can I convert that to a decimal? Yes, I can. So that's a test grade. And it does these for each of these 10 records that you see in here. And every time it does that successfully, it adds it to our list of students. So it adds that student to our list of students. Since it can possibly fail, we put a catch block in there. Now, I'm going to make that catch block actually come up right now. I'm going to put the wrong file name in here. I'm going to leave the S off of grade, so it says grade. And I don't know if we can run it yet where we'll get that error or not, but let's see. So I'm going to do a save all, and I want to run it, but I have to let the system know that now I want to run program number 2. All right. Well, and I don't have a read line in here, so that's why I just flip it right off the screen. All right, let's try it again. Error reading could not file. All right, because there is no file called grade. But you'll notice if I put it in as grades and save it, now it's not complete yet, the program isn't done. But if I run it now, I don't get any errors. It's not doing anything yet, but it doesn't give me an error. All right, so everything I've done thus far at least appears to be working. All right, so this can say, create a new student object. All right, and this can say, add the student object to the list of students. Okay, so that's everything that's in there. That's fine. So we've now read it in. We're not done though. All right, so we want to come back up here and kind of like what we did before, I'm going to come up here. I'm going to hit enter a few times. And just like we did before, I'm going to say bool run again equal true. We want to run the program again. So while run again, what do we want to do? Well, let's clear the screen. So console.clear. So we're always starting with a fresh screen. I'll just make it easier to read. All right. So we don't have to do this. What I'm about to show you, we don't have to do, but I decided that what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and display the 10 students in the grades.txt file. You didn't have to do this, but I'm doing it that way. So console.writeLine, and I'm going to say in here, here are the 10 students. Okay. All right. Then I put a for each in here so we can see those students. So I'm going to write this line of code. All right. And then we're going to do a write line. Then we'll go back and run the program and we should see our 10 students. So for each student in students, you have to let it know what type it is. So var student in students. All right. So what we want to do now is we want to write out each student. So console dot write line. Okay, so we'll put in here, this is going to be a little long, but name, and we'll need the student dot name. All right. And then the lab grade. And that'll be student dot lab grade. All right. And then finally, the test grade. And that'll be student dot test grade. Now, all I'm doing right here is I'm echoing out what's in the file. That's all I'm doing. All right. So you might say, that's fine. Why the heck are you doing that? Did I have to? No. But I want to, every time I run this, I want to be able to see the information that's in the file. Okay, so let me do this. I'm just going to say console.writeLine. I'm going to put a couple blank lines in there. So let's run this and see now when we do this. All right, what I want to see is if I get my 10 records to show on the screen. So file, save all. Well, I got something in here, but it's in a loop. All right, I'm going to fix it right now. I mean, this is the thing. All right, I'm working off a program, but as I'm going over this program with you, if I see something and I think I really should have written it like this, I'm trying to better it. All right, that's why what I'm doing here is I'm writing some code and then I'm testing. Then I'm writing some more code and then I'm testing. That's what I'm trying to do right now. All right. All right, so when I'm all done with this, there's going to be other stuff we want to do in here, but I'm going to try to put in here a console.readline. Okay. There's our 10 records. Okay, there they are. All right, and I don't want this where I'm putting in those two blank lines. I want that down here. So let's run it one more time and it should look the way we want it to look. There's our 10 students. So here are the 10 students. So every time I run this, I'll have that in front of me. So I'll be able to, when I do this, if I want to, I don't have to do it, but if I want to, I'll be able to look, oh, there's John, there's Jane, there's Mark, etc. All right, so I can verify immediately that the stuff that I put in there worked. And that's all I'm trying to do with that. That's it. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to search for a student. Okay, same kind of thing we did before. All righty, so let's do this. So I'm going to search for a student by name. Exactly what we talked about before. All right, so console dot write, enter student name to search for. I made it a right so it stays on the same line. So I called it search name. So string search name equal console dot read line. So now if I run this again, it comes up and it says enter student name to search for. So that's where we are in here. Okay. All right. Now I could do the work right in here where I'm searching for it, but I tried to modularize. So I said here, student, and I just called it found student. So this, if I put in one of those 10 names, found student will have their information. If I put in a name that's not in there, like Kathy, it'll contain null. So I'm saying string, should say string. I don't know why it says that, but string, no, it is student, I'm sorry. Student, found student, and call this whatever you'd like to call it. Set that equal to search for student, which hasn't been written yet, which is why I'm getting the error. And I've got to pass in my list of students and the name I'm searching for. All right, so again, I'm getting this error here. I'm getting that error because I don't have anything written yet that's called search for student. All right, so let's write that. And I'll put that right below the one I just did to read from the file. So right below that. All right, I'm going to put that in here. The good news is it's not a very long routine at all. It's only got a few lines in it. So static student, search for student. All right, and this will be my list. Remember, I have to let it know what type of variables these are. So this is a list of student called students, and this is just a string. All right. Now I told you that this was a very small routine. All right. How small? I'm going to write the whole thing right here. Return students dot first or default equal first or default. And just like we did before, multiple lines. So S name, try that again. Come on, there you go. S dot name dot equals name, string, comparison, dot ordinal, ignore case. All right. So what doesn't it like here? We're going to fix that and we'll be done because that's all that's in this routine. So S okay. S dot name dot equals search name string comparison dot ordinal ignore case. What this is going to do It's important that you understand this because we are going to do this routine when we do the GUI in just a couple minutes. All right. This is going to go through the entire list of students. And the first one that it finds that matches, it's going to return all that student information. So it'll return that student's name, that student's lab grade, and that student's test grade. It'll return all of them. If it doesn't find anything, it will return null. So I'm going to say this one more time. We're passing in our list of 10 students, along with the name of the student we're searching for. All right. If the name that we're searching for right there is equal to the current name that's in there, and this is just another way of doing this. I wanted to show you that because string comparison dot ordinal, that's like if I ran the two upper on each one, I could do that. But this is just a little shorter. All right. A little bit nicer. All right. So it's all that's going to do is it's going to return something. So I'm going to jump back up to here into here. So I just call this found student right there. And found student either has the name of my student, that student's lab grade, and that student's test grade, or it has no. All right, so I'm going to say here, if found student is not equal to null, well, then we've got a valid student. We found a match. There was a match. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to call a routine that doesn't exist, but it'll only be 2 lines long. So we'll write it in a minute. Decimal overall grade equal calculate overall grade for what? For the found student, right? For the current student. Now that doesn't exist. So we'll come down here and we'll write it. Going down to the bottom now. And that will be again, literally again, going to be very short. Static, decimal, calculate this, and we can call it found student, but it's just a student. So I'm going to return that student's dot lab grade times 40%, 0.4 plus, and I'm getting an error because it's a decimal, so I need an M there, plus that student's test grade times 60%. M. That's it. So now we have just figured out, all right, for that student, what their overall grade is. All right. Well, now we know every bit of information that we're supposed to print out. Okay, and that's all up here. Okay, so now we can just come in and do 4 write lines. So console dot write line, and I'm going to put in here found student, and we'll put in here next found student dot name, and that'll print out their name. Okay, console dot write line, and we'll say all we'll just say here is lab grade, and we will have found student dot lab grade. All right, and then we'll do the same thing with the test grade. So test grade, found student dot test grade. And finally, our last piece of information, which is the overall grade. Okay. All right, that's something we calculated, so that's not a found student something. It's just in there as overall grade, and we can format it as an N2, so it has 2 decimal places in it. All right, the only thing that we have left to do, and we'll do that in just a second, the only thing we have left to do is to see whether or not we can run the program again. So right now we won't be able to keep running the program, I don't think. So let me do a file, save all, and try to run it. So there it is. So let's search for John. And there's John's information. All right, we can run it again, and I'll put in Jane, and there's Jane's information. So I can keep going. All right, but I really don't have a thing in here that asks the user if she or he wants to keep going. So just like we had done previously, right before we finish this up, all right, I'm going to come in here and say console dot line, so right line. So there's a little spacing in here. And then we're going to say run again equals, just like we did before. All right. And we can call it whatever we want. I think I called it again before. Let's fix that. So again, I don't have anything that exists that's called again. So let's quickly write that. Let's get rid of a couple of these blank lines in here. There we go. So at the very bottom, I'm going to have here static bool again. The same exact thing that we wrote earlier. So bool result equal true, string yes or no equals the empty string, and a char, which is the first character of yes or no. All right, so first char, that's going to be equal to just a blank character for right now. All right, so we're going to ask the user if they want to run the program again. Console.writeLine. Make that a write. Run program again, and we want them to put in a Y or an N, ideally. But since they're human beings, they might type in the word yes, they might type in, and they might do a lot of different stuff. We don't know what the heck they're going to do. Right? We really have no idea. So yes or no equals console.readline. Okay. If the first character, so if yes or no dot trim, all right. If it's not equal to nothing, that means they entered something. Okay, so they entered something. We don't know what they entered yet. Okay, so the first character is going to be equal to yes or no 0. All right, that's the first character. If that first character is not a Y, okay, so if it's not a Y, we'll set result equal to false. In other words, we don't want to run the program again. And then finally, last line, return result. Okay, that should work then. So file, save all. Again, we listed our grades, so let's put in somebody who's there. So Mary, there's her information. Run program again? Yes. And look at that, I didn't check for a lowercase. I don't think I can run to char on this, so I'm going to say if first char is equal to an uppercase Y, or first char, actually it's going to have to be an and, not equal to a lowercase y. I'm not checking for both right now, and I have to do that because of the way I wrote this. Now it should take a lowercase y. So again, if I put in here Gail, there's Gail's information, run the program again, yes, there it is. If I've got somebody who doesn't exist, so Greg, okay, well, we're not saying Greg not found, and we were supposed to do that. That means we're missing a line of code. That's why you constantly run and test the program. All right. So we came in here. Okay. We can return. But if we get down to here, wait a minute, do we want to return there? No, we want an else there. So if otherwise there was nothing, there was no student in there. So I'm just going to do a console.writeLine. Grab that. And I'm going to say student search name not found. We weren't doing that previously in this program. We are now. So if I do come in here, I want to make sure I didn't break anything. So let's do a save all. Run it. Okay, we'll put in Jill. There's her information. Run the program again. Yes. Now we'll put in Martin, who's not in there. Student Martin not found. So all of that works. So I've spent the first hour and a half and I've written 2 versions of this that were both console apps. What I'm going to do right now, it is 9:33. I'm going to take a 7-minute break. And at 9:40, I'm going to come back. And at that time, I'm going to write this application that you see right here. All right, again, it's 9:33. Let's come back, please, at 9:40, and we're going to write this from scratch. All right, then it is 9:40, so I'm going to, excuse me, I'm going to start back up again. All right, so let me again grab this. And I'm going to create one more program. This will be the last one then for today. All right, let me close these just to make it a little easier to see what's going on here. So I'm going to right mouse click on my solution. I'm going to choose Add, New Project. This will be a Windows Forms app.NET framework. And I'm going to call this Student Grades GUI. And what you call it is totally up to you, of course. So click Create. There it is. Okay, I don't think I'm going to have to make it any bigger or anything. All right. So this right here is going to hold this right here. So it says student grades. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to put student grades in there. So student grades. So that now says student grades like it's supposed to. Let's change the color so it's a little bit easier to work with. I think I'll use purple. That's fine. All right, so we've got that. Let's see. Let's change the name of our form. I'm just going to call it FRM grades. Should be fine. Yes, I want to change it everywhere. Why I get that message sometimes, I do. So then I got to change it back again. As soon as I type in form1.cs, it should go back and be fine. And then if I do it again, let's see now. Try FRM students. See if that takes it without an error. Look at that. Good golly. Why it's been doing that for the last few weeks. Never did this before. Took that. So again, some reason I lost my color, so let's bring that back. Okay, this is a fairly simple interface. It's going to have 5 labels, one text box, and I added 3 buttons. I added the clear and the exit. So let's start by putting in our labels. There's our first label. All right, so this is going to say, I think it's student name right there. And then we're going to have a text box next to that. That is. There it is. And then we're going to have our 3 buttons. All right, and I'm going to copy this 4 times. All right, I'm going to have one here. Then another one here. Then another one about here. And another one about here. That up, that up. All right. Let's change the size of the text in all of these. So I'm highlighting all of them and I'm going up to text. I'm going to, as I have been doing all semester, make that 24 bold and Arial. Okay, that looks good. Let's take all of these buttons that are these labels rather and center them. All right, let's center this. All right, and then let's name everything. Okay, so this first thing will be our, I think we were told, let me move this down a little bit. It's better. All right, I think the first one was, let's see what it's called. I think it's just search. So we'll say here BTN search. And it will have search in it. Let's put ampersand search. There's that. Our second one will be our clear button. So it'll be C ampersand LEAR for clear. And it'll be called BTN clear. And our last one will be BTN exit. And it'll have in it the code or the text, I should say, E ampersand XIT. So we've got all that done. Let's lock our interface into place. There we go. All right. So this first label right here is going to hold the student's name. So I'm going to move this over so we've got plenty of room to work with it over here. I will make this LBL student name. And it's probably not going to be big enough now, but that's okay. We'll fix it in a moment. So I'm going to put in here student name. Oh, it is big enough. Great. Okay, so that is LBL student name. So we're going to make this TXT student name. All right, so that's done. This next one that's here is going to be so again, we're going to have lab grade. Oh, what are we supposed to put here? All right, so student name, lab grade, test grade, overall grade. Okay. So we call that LBL student name. So I'm just going to call this one in fact, let's change this one. instead of student name, let's call this, because we're searching here. So let's call this LBL name search. Call this TXT name search. Okay, so this will now be called LBL student name. And I don't want anything in it. So I'm just going to remove that text that's in it. This next one is going to be called LBL lab grade. And again, I want nothing in it, so I'm going to remove the text from it. The next one is going to be our test grade, so I'm going to call it LBL test grade. And again, remove the text from it. And finally, the last one is the overall grade. So I'm going to call this one LBL overall grade. All right, so I've got everything has been named, I believe. Let's double check. Coming up here and bring that up and look. So yeah, everything has been named. Okay, that's done. Let's click on our form and let's set our accept button to BTN search, our cancel button to BTN clear. All right, and our start position to center screen. In addition, let's set our tab order. It's going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, so view tab order, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and a view tab order. Now, because you're being asked to do this on your final project, I'm also going to include a menu in here. And that's real simple. All you have to do is find in here a thing called menu strip, grab it, drag it, and just drop it off there. Come on. There it is. And I'm going to make an option for each one of my buttons. So search, we can put an ampersand again. So ampersand SEARCH. There's the first one in our menu. The second one in our menu will be C ampersand LEAR. So we now have clear. And the last one will be exit. So we now have 3 menu options. In fact, let me take this because it's pretty close now. Let me grab all this. And I'm going to unlock this and just move it down a little bit here. Okay. I think that'll end up looking a little bit better. All right. So I believe the interface is set. Now, when we click search, we want to run the routine that's going to do a search. When we click search here, we're going to want to do this. Well, this gives it a real crummy name. It calls it search tool script menu item. So I'm going to change this to just search. I'm going to get rid of the words tool strip. So it's just called search menu item. I like that better. This one I'm going to change to clear menu item. And the last one I'm going to change to exit menu item. All right, those are all done. So I've already got this, boom. And now I'm going to click it right underneath that. I'm going to put this. I want to do the same thing, whether I click the button or I click the menu item. I want to do the same thing. Okay. In the same way, this will be my clear. And again, I want to do the same thing. If I click clear from the menu, there's that. And then finally, I'll have my exit. And again, I want to do the same thing if I click exit from the menu. All right, so those are all done. Let's start the way we typically do when we're doing this. And that is, I'm going to come in here, I'm going to, why? Because I want to grab that exit program or not that we've written many times. There it is. All right, so let's put that in here. So I'm going to stick it right there. There's our exit program or not. Okay, so I can now call that both from my button and I can call it from my menu option. And they should both work. Let's try it. So let me do a file, save all, and let me run the program. Oops. I'm going to set my start project to my GUI. So right mouse click on the name of the project, choose set as startup project. Now let's run it again. Errors. All right. What were the errors? I'm missing somewhere in here. I have somehow lost a couple of curly braces. Okay, I don't know how, but I did. So run it again. There it is. So I can click exit. Boom. And I should now be able to click exit from here as well. Okay, they both work. All right, so that's done. When I clear, what do I want to have happen? Well, I want this to clear, 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 and I want to put my focus there. But don't worry about it right now. So I'm going to call this just clear the GUI, which hasn't been written yet. So I'm going to get an error message. And I want to call that from here as well. Again, I'll get two error messages now. So let's write it. All right. So we've got our txt name search dot text is going to be equal to nothing. And all those labels. So LBL, not name search. We want student name dot text is equal to nothing. LBL is going to be equal to nothing. LBL test grade dot text is going to be equal to nothing. LBL overall grade dot text is going to be equal to nothing. Plus, we want to take txt name search dot focus. Let's pretty this up just a little bit here. Now, these are labels. They don't have anything in them anyway. So the only thing I'm going to be able to test is if I put something into the text box and I click clear, okay, does it clear and does it put my focus there? But we can check that. Let's try it from the menu here. So I'll put some junk in there, click clear. It cleared, and there's my cursor. So that's all working. All right. So the only one I've got left is, as you'd guess, the hard one, and that's search. Now, the good news for this, the good news is the logic is virtually the same as what I just did in the program we just went over. All right, so it's going to be very similar. The other thing is, if you look on here, what I want to have happen if I put a valid name in, I want it to look like this. I want this stuff to be in here. Student name, lab grade, test grade, overall grade, and then those values that I'm going to pull in from these three values. I'm going to pull in from the text file. This one I'm going to calculate. All right. Why am I telling you all that? Because the way that I wrote this is up at the top of my program, I created a bunch of constants, 5 of them to be exact. So global constants, you don't have to do this at all, but this is just the way that I wrote it. They're all strings. So that'll be the student name. That'll be the letter grade. That'll be the test grade. I'm sorry, not letter grade, that's lab grade. This will be the test and our overall grade, and put in a semicolon. And finally, when the person's name is not found, I'm going to use their name and then I'm going to say not found. Okay, so those are what I put in as global variables, global constants. Did I have to do that? Of course not. All right, but that's the way that I did it. Click the button and search, or I choose the menu option that says search. I want to perform the student name search. So I'm going to write that in a second. Perform student name search. Again, I'm getting an error because it hasn't been written yet. I'm going to write it in just a second. All right, so let's write that right down below here. So private void perform student name search. Just grab it from here. Now all my errors should go away. They all have. So this is what when we either click the search button or, all right, so this is what's going to happen when we either click the search button or we click the search menu item. All right, so when we either, and that's, so we're calling it from here and from here. All right. So what are we going to do? Three things. All right, first, just like we did before, we're going to say list student. Now we're going to get errors here because we have not yet hooked up our program to our class library. We'll do that in just a second. Students equal, just like we did before, read students from file, exact same way we did this before. And this is going to be C:\\, C#. This is just where I have the file being held. Files. And again, it was called grade. All right, so why am I getting the errors? Well, it should be obvious to you by now why I'm getting these errors. First of all, that'll fix one error. There's one. This is because we have not yet mapped this up. So add reference to student grade library, putting that in, brought in this. So we've now got that in here, first line. All right, but we still have an error. Reads from students because we haven't created that yet. We're going to create that in a minute. Before I do that, though, let me bring in, I had copied it before and then never pasted it in. Copy that and paste it in. Don't know how, but I lost. I'm not going to worry about prettying that up or anything. I'm just going to leave it like that. Okay. It's giving me an error right now that says the name read student from file does not exist. All right, because we have not yet written that. All right, so right under our perform student name search, okay? Right underneath this, we're going to write another routine. And it's going to be read students from file. And it'll have a string in there that we'll call file name, because that's going to be this. But it's much easier to refer to it as file name as opposed to having to key in all that stuff. All right. And again, like I said, you might be amazed. If I go back to here, if I go back to the program we just looked at, console 2, right here. And if I go back to our program.cs file, let me grab this because now this is formatted. I'll make it easier. There, now I've got it formatted. All right. If I come back here, though, and I grab everything that we had in that read student from file, I'm going to grab the whole thing. Now, I might have to change a couple things, but it's going to pretty much be the same thing, all right, in here. So like I said, whatever changes I have to make should be simple, hopefully. So there's that. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to paste that in. Now it's giving me errors. Okay, we'll fix those errors right now. So we've still got that read students from file. All right, we've got our list. So we're going to create our list of students. We're again going to put this into a try catch block. We're again going to have our using, our string line, same kind of stuff we did before. All right, same stuff. You'll notice there's no errors yet. All right, in fact, all the errors are down here. I might be missing, looks like I'm missing a curly brace. All right, now I might have one too many, I don't know. So let's see. This goes with this. Here we've got our if and our else. This goes with the while. This goes with the using. That goes with the try. Oh, I don't have a catch in there. How did I miss copying in the catch? I don't know. Let's go back here to where we just were. And let's grab the catch. And that return students. And there's no errors. It's the same code. So let's take a look at it one more time. All right. We click our search button. When we click it, it goes and it grabs the list of students from the file grades.txt. All right. We're telling it to read it in from there, and that's what we're doing in here. So again, our list of students. All right, we got to try. It's the exact same thing as before. We use the stream reader to open the file for reading permission. All right, this is each line that's in the file. While there's something to read, we again split the line into 3 fields. Data 0, which holds the name of the student. Data 1, which holds the student's lab grade. Data 2, which holds the student's test grade. We're splitting it based on that comma. And then we make sure there's 3 fields. We make sure we can parse the second of the 3 fields. That's our lab grade, so we can parse it as a decimal. We make sure we can parse the third as a decimal, and that becomes our test grade. All right. If we can do all that, then we create a new student object by grabbing those individual pieces, and we add that new student to our list of students, just like that. All right. So that's pretty good. And if it didn't work, there was an error reading the file. Now, I believe that if we run this, I don't think it's going to do much of anything yet when I search. See, nothing happens. But what should happen is that, like I showed you before, I'm going to remove that. Now there's no grade.txt file. And if I run it again, no, it's still not giving me an error, but I think if we run it again later, it will. All right. So we've got that done. Finish that. All right. Now I want to jump back up to here because we've now handled in both of these. In here, we have now, all right, create the student list by reading in the contents of the grades.txt file. It's exactly what we wanted to do right there. All right, so what do we want to do next? Guess what? Again, it's going to look fairly similar to what we just did in the console app. So I'm going to come in here and say student, and again, I'm going to call it found student equal a routine we haven't written yet. Oops, found student. It's going to be equal to search for student by put this in here. Let's quickly put this in here. All right. So underneath our read students from file, right underneath where that one ends, I'm going to have in here private. It's going to return students, and that's going to be that search. And this is going to give me an error. So it's got to say it's a list of type student. Whoops. Student. And it's called students. All right. Now that's going to give me an error until I write some code in there. All right. So we'll write that right now. All right. The first thing we want to do is we want to make sure the text box was not empty. So if there's nothing in there, all right. Don't know what I did there. Something stupid. So if there's nothing in there, what do I want to do? Well, let's come down and write one of those show message routines like we've done many times. So private void show message. Button. And I'll do that, but that's not a question. We want this to be an error. Okay, there's that. So, all right. If there's nothing in there, we want to call show message and let the user know the name, search name, text box has no value. In other words, it's empty. So we'll do that. I'm going to create a variable that we're going to use. It's going to be called print nothing. Don't worry about what it means right now, but I'm going to comment it out for right now. And I'm going to type in print nothing equal true. Don't worry about what that means. We're going to go over it in about 5 minutes. And I'm going to return null. There's nothing in there, so there's no student to search for. Okay. We should be able to do that. All right, now it's giving us that error here because we don't have another return in here. All right, but we will be able to test this in about 5 minutes. So if we get down to here, there was something in the text box. All right, so there's something in there. We don't know yet what it is, but there's something that's in there. All right, so, well, what is this? This is search, so I'm going to use that same return statement that I used in here before. Again, I'm trying to show you how similar in nature these two programs are. They're the same program. All right. Now, we didn't call it search name. Okay, list of students. What did we call this? That is not search name. This is what we put in the text box. So this is txt name search.text. We move this. Again, what I'm saying right here is I want you to look through the entire list of 10 students. If you find one that matches, return it. If you go through the entire thing and you didn't find it, you will be returning null. So you're either going to be returning null because it didn't find it. So if I put Billy in there and there's no Billy in my list, it should come back and say Billy not found. All right. So there's only one more thing we have to do, and that is to show our results. Okay. And I want to do that from here. I'm going to get an error message because we haven't written it yet. So I'm going to show the results. And I want to pass into that found student. So that's the current student I'm working with. Okay, and it's called show results. So down after we write the search above clear, I'm going to write private void show results. And for showing those results, not a real long routine, I don't know, maybe 15 lines, 20 lines, I don't know. We're going to pass in student, and we could call it found student again. It doesn't really matter. All right. Now, earlier, I had this variable that I commented out that I called print nothing. And I said, I'm going to explain to you what that is. First of all, let's make it global. So I'm going to make a Boolean variable here. So this will be my global variable. And bool print nothing. And I'm going to set it equal to false. Now, what is that? Well, I want to show you. If we run this program and we don't have a match, so if it's going to give me an error, but if I come in there and write Johnny and I don't have a Johnny, I want right here, I want it to say student Johnny not found, but I want nothing to print here because there is no lab grade. I want nothing to print here because there is no test grade. I want nothing to print here because there is no overall grade. So if print nothing is set to true, I don't want anything in these three text boxes to print. That's what print nothing is meaning or means, for lack of better words. All right. So I've got this print nothing now. So now where I took it before and wherever I did that, now I can uncomment that. Notice when it's set to true. It's set to true in that case because there's nothing to print. All right, so if I trim it and there's nothing in there, there's nothing to print. All right, now there could still be a problem with this. We're going to see in just a second. So here's my show results. So if print nothing, in other words, if print nothing is true, all right, all I'm going to do here is just return. There's nothing more for me to do. All right, now I should be able to hopefully run this now it's partially completed. But if I do this and I put nothing in here and I click search, all right, search text box empty. Search name text box has no value. And when I click OK, my cursor should be right there. Oh, I guess I must not have set that. So let's check. Yep. So print nothing is true. And I want to say txt name search dot focus. Just like that. Let's run it again. All right, I'm going to click there. I'm going to put in nothing. And I'm going to click search. And there it is. Okay, so that's working. I know that's not much, but that's working. All right. Else, if found student, oh, we just called it student. If it's not equal to null, we found a match. There was a match. So it's like I put in John or I put in Mike or one of those that we talked about before. All right. So we're going to print out three things first. LBL student name dot text equals, and I'm using interpolation. I've been using it all period today. So we want to print out what? The student name, which we set up before as SN. So student name and the name. Okay. All right, I'm going to copy this. All right, so this will be the lab grade. This will be the test grade. And this will be lab grade and test grade. And this will be student.lab grade. And this will be student.test grade. Now, the only thing that's not done right now is that overall grade. We're going to do that in a minute, but let's see if this works. So file, save all. And I'm going to put John in here. That was one of our valid names. Student name John, lab grade 77.8, test grade 93.2. Let's put in another one. Mary was another one. Gail was another one. They all appear to be working. Now I can check our clear, and that's working. Okay. So the only thing to do is that overall grade. All right. So LBL overall grade. In fact, let's not print it in here. Let's call calculate overall grade, which hasn't been written yet. So we're going to pass the student into that. Let's grab this. It's very short. It's the same one we wrote before. So right before our clear, we'll put it, I guess, right below where we were. Private void. I don't know what I did there, but and this is calculate overall grade. All right. And it's a student. And this is, how similar is this? Remember this when I went in here and returned this? All right. Well, now I'm going to just do this. In fact, we can do it the same way. Let's just see if we can. So I'm going to put a C there to copy. I am going to change this to LBL overall grade dot text equal the results of that calculate grade. So that's going to return a decimal. And I'm going to put in here return. What is it? What is going on here? just like we did before. Okay. And then finally, so text is going to be equal to that's going to return a decimal. All right, so let's say dot toString, and we'll put that to 2 decimal places. Okay, now let's see if it all works. So file, save all. We'll again try John. And, oh, we didn't put down here calculated grade. So I've got to add that. All right, so let's put in here. I think it was overall grade. So that's OG for overall grade. All right. And let's see. Let's create a variable in here. So I'm going to say here decimal, overall grade equal, and we'll put that call to our function right there. Like this. Okay, now when we print in here, all we have to print here is overall grade dot toString, like that. There we go. Now, the only thing we haven't accounted for is what if there wasn't a match? So this will be our else. So here, there was a matching student. But if I get down to this final else, there was no matching student. All right. So since there's no matching student, I don't want to print this same stuff. I want to say LBL for the student name dot text. That's going to be equal to student, and that'll be txt name search dot text, and then our not found. We set that up before as NF. All right. So it should say that that student's name was not found. But we don't want to put anything into these three things. We want those to remain empty. There is no lab grade. There's no lab grade. There's no test grade. There's no overall grade. So I'm just going to set all of them equal to the empty string. Like that. And we should be done. Let's check. So file, save all, and let's run it. So if we put in here Mike, there's Mike's information. We can clear. Let's clear it from the menu. All right, let's put in Billy, who's not in there. Oh, well, that's wrong. So we'll have to fix that. All right. But these are not printing like they shouldn't be. So let's fix that. So student and F. Oh, I forgot my $sign. All right. So again, Billy, student Billy not found, and the rest are empty. So let's take 5 or 10 minutes and go over this whole thing from top to bottom. All right. Then what I'm going to do, just so you know, if you didn't hear this from the beginning of the period, I'm going to stop taping. And when I stop taping, I'm going to take about a 10-minute break and come back. And then I'm going to do about a 10 or 15-minute long introduction to the AWD1000 class for fall. And then I'm going to take another break and do another tape where I do an intro to the AWD class, and then be done sometime between 11 and 11:30. And tomorrow then I'm going to go over chapter 22, all right, which is the last chapter we have in the book. So taking it from the top, you hopefully saw how similar this program was, whether I wrote it in either as a console app or as a GUI app. So we set up 5 global constants, as you can see, and 1 global variable. Really, probably didn't even need to make it global. I mean, there's ways I could have gotten around that. When we click search from either our button or from our menu item, either way we call perform student name search. When we do that, as it says right here, the first thing that we're doing is we're creating a student file by reading in the contents of the grades.txt file. So you will have to create a grades.txt file, which looks like this. I don't know if that's mine or if you've got your mic on. If you do, if you could turn it off, I'd appreciate it. All right. So you'll have to make this file. If you don't want it to look like that, you can put in your own names, you can put in your own grades, etc. All right. Save this wherever you would like to save it. Again, where I saved mine was out on my C drive. I made a folder called C#, and in that folder called C#, I made a folder called Files. And for chapter 17 and for this one, that's where I put my text files. So as it says, I'm creating a list of students by reading the contents of that text file. Another way this could have been written is I could have put here an @ sign. And if I put an @ sign there, then I only need to put in one of those things. Either one of those ways would work. All right. Okay. So this again is going to create our global list of our list of students. Then we want to search for the student. This is going to search for student name that was inputted into the text box right there. And now that I've got my list of students that are called students, I pass that into that. Finally, get done, I want to display the results. Okay, so let's look at these. So this first thing was read students from file, and that was this. Okay, so again, this is going to be, if we're able to read it in successfully, we're going to stick it into students. And students is a list of type student. Sometimes that confuses people, but all we're doing right now is students, and it's a list of type student. All right. Then we're going through the same stuff that was explained in We're going through the same stuff that was explained in chapter 17. All right. And that is we're using a stream reader object, all right, that we're calling SR. And we're doing that, and notice inside of that, we're passing to it the file name, which is grades.txt. All right. And then we're going to get 10 lines of text. For each line of text, as long as there's something on that line, we take the current line and we split it into 3 fields. The first field will hold the name, the second field will hold the lab grade, the third field will hold the test grade. Split based on that comma. All right. If we did have 3 fields, and if the second field can be parsed into a decimal, we put it into lab grade. If the third field that's in there can be parsed into a decimal, we call it test grade. Now, we put this thing in here, all right, and I really could have put this into a try-catch also, because if for some reason, watch what's going to happen here. I'm going to come into my file, and I'm going to grab one of these here, and instead of a 3, I'm going to put in a J. Now, that's wrong. All right. And the program should blow up now. I believe it will. So when I run this and I put in John, all right, well, it's not even blowing up. I thought that it would. All right. But the point is, there's garbage in there right now. Okay. Oh, you saw what it said. It says student John not found, even though John's in there. And it's because it was not able to do this. This failed. All right. So it ended up returning null. All right, which is not a good thing. John is in there, that's just that this was wrong. So we changed it back again. I'm going to save that. And now when I run it again and put in John, it should work. Right, and as you can see, it does. All right. So if we were able to do all of this stuff, if these tests passed, we've got a valid found student. So we're creating a new student object. Now, another way I could have done this, just so you know, this is considered the newer way of doing it. But I'm going to put this in here and I'm going to comment it out. But I could have said student equals new student. Geez, learn to type. All right. And then inside of there, I could have put in txt. What did we call it? txt, was it name search or whatever the heck it was? So let me find it. txt name search dot text and lab grade and test grade. This is it the first field we put in and these 2 fields. So that would have been another way of doing it. All right, that might be a little confusing. Let me just, even though it's going to kind of bleed off the page. So it would have been this, followed by this, followed by this. So rather than doing the line like this, we did it like this. That's considered the newer way of doing it. And that's the more accepted way. It's a little more to type, but it's also more graphical in nature. So it's kind of easier to see what's going on. All right. And after we do that, we add that to our list of students right there. Now, if it didn't work, we're just saying error reading file. Now, I said before, so let's see if I do come up here and I change this to grade, which doesn't, just make it grad, which doesn't exist. I have nothing called grad.text. So I'm going to do a save all, and I'm going to put in here again, I'll put in John, and I'll click search. All right, all I get is John not found. But no matter what I put in there, it won't be found. I guess it's not even hitting that. All right. Okay, because it's not, there is no file by that name. So this should still be grades. Right. And again, if I do put that back, you saw John not found, and there John's found. All right. So we come in here, we read the information in from the text file. We check to see if the student existed, and then we display the results. So here was the stuff we just looked at. All right. Then we've got to search for student by name. If there was nothing in there, we just want to let the user know, hey, there was nothing in there. Otherwise, there was something in there. This is either going to return the first John, for example, if I put John in there, that it finds, or it's going to return null if I put in like Barney. All right. Show results. Here we're doing nothing. Why? Because we had that error. We returned null earlier, but that's because we left the search name text box empty. So we don't want to print anything at all. Here, there was a match. We found a student. So we're printing out all of that student's information. And you'll notice we're first calculating their grade. And we're calculating their grade by their lab grade times 40% plus their test grade times 60%, as per the requirements. Then we're printing out their name, their lab grade, their test grade, and their overall grade. Otherwise, there was no match. So we put in Barney. So it should say Barney not found. The lab grade thing should be empty. The test grade thing should be empty. The overall grade thing should be empty. So again, if I come in here and put in Barney, student Barney not found. That line that you're seeing right here, student Barney not found, is this line right here. And that is everything. All right. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to close this, and I want to go back to what we started with this morning. All right. So I went over several versions of the LINQ worksheet problem number 3. Okay, we've done that. So what I'm going to do now, and I'm going to break this up into 2 more lectures. All right, as of right now, and you may know this, you may not, there are 6 people in your class. All right, now for the fall semester, 2 of those 6 people are going to be going and taking this class. 4 of you are going to be taking this class. I think that's right. And I could be wrong. It might be 3 and 3, but I think it's something like that. Okay. And also, there's 15 or 16 other people who are signed up to take the AWD1000 class. So I'm going to do somewhere around a 10 or 15 minute lecture on that. Then I'm going to stop the tape, make another tape where I do a 10 to 15 minute lecture on that. All right. 2 more things. And that is, again, tomorrow, which is Thursday, we'll go over chapter 22. As I said, you are not responsible for any of the material. There's no written test, there's no homework, there's no lab, there's no worksheets for chapters 20 or 21 or 22. All right. So why are you going over it? Well, I'm not going over 20 and 21. If you want to see those, you can look at the older lectures I did last fall, but that was the 7th version of the book, or the 7th edition, and not the 8th like we're using. All right. But I'm going over 22 because we use data grid views. And I think it's an important concept. So I'll go over that tomorrow. And I may even create a little project from scratch on that. I don't know. All right. This weekend, this is an FYI for you, not on here, but I am going to be grading this weekend. All right. Saturday or Sunday or both, depending on how busy it is and how long it takes. I'd like to have everything graded. So my hope is everyone has all of their work in for chapters 17 through 19. All right, so I can grade it. All right. I've said this before, but I'm saying it again. Take a look at Inside Rankin if you have not done so lately. See where you are in this class as far as your grade goes. All right. If you're at A, B, or C, you're fine. If you're not fine. Anyone, when you look through Inside Rankin, if you've got missing assignments, I'll still take them. All right. But if you do them, you've got to send me an email that says, hey, I went back and redid, I never did the, I did not earlier do the written test for chapters 10, 11, and 12. I've done those. Then just put that into an email. All right. Okay. And then finally, as it says here, your chapters 17, 18, and 19 written tests and this LINQ worksheet. So we've now done all three of the problems on this LINQ worksheet. They are now all due by midnight tonight. All right. Your final project is due 2 weeks from yesterday by midnight. Your electronic portfolio is due 2 weeks from tonight by midnight. The other thing that I'm going to attempt to do this weekend is to go back to your final project. All right, this thing, and I have not written it, but I'm going to see if I can write it, and then I'll show you what it should look like next week. I'm not giving you a lick of the code. This is worth 2 test grades. You're supposed to be writing it. All right. And I will also, even though I don't think I have it up right here, all right, I've already shown you an example of an electronic portfolio, and I have shown you how to take that electronic portfolio and save it to GitHub Pages. That is worth 150 points or 1.5 test grades. All right. So I'm done right now. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to email me at jpscott@rankin.edu. And with that said, I will see you tomorrow morning. All right. At 8 o'clock. I'll talk to you then. Thanks.